What happens after this? Well, we have the Counter Reformation. The church initially ignored Martin Luther, but Luther's ideas and variations of them, including Calvinism, quickly spread throughout Europe. He was asked to recant or to disavow his writings at the Diet of Worms, an unfortunate name for a council held by the Holy Roman Emperor in the German city of Worms, not Worms, it's pronounced Worms. I'll say it again, Worms. When Luther refused, he was excommunicated, in other words, expelled from the church. The church's response to the threat from Luther and others during this period is called the Counter Reformation. Counter obviously meaning against. Okay, so essentially what happens here is Luther gets in trouble because at first they're like, you know what, we're just going to ignore him. The church is saying we're just going to ignore this guy. He'll go away eventually. He'll die or something. I don't know. It's like, it's 1500. He's only going to live to be like 30 anyways, right? But other people were like, hey, this Martin Luther fella, he's got some good ideas. So they started following him, and obviously, when more and more people followed him, that caused a disruption in the Holy Roman or in the Catholic Church's power. So they're like, get out of here. We don't just go away. So that was basically Counter Reformation. That's kind of how they got rid of him. All right. The Council of Trent. In 1545, the church opened the Council of Trent to deal with the issues raised by Luther. The Council of Trent was an assembly of high officials in the church who met on and off for 18 years, principally in northern Italy, in the northern Italy Italian town of Trent for 25 sessions. So they met a lot of times. So basically, it was just basically the higher up people of the church meeting to talk about what Luther was bringing up, because sure, there was a part of them that was kind of like, hey, this guy is kind of making some decent points, so maybe we need to talk about this. So here are some of the selected outcomes. So they talked about a lot of things, but here are the selected outcomes from the Council of Trent. The council denied the Lutheran idea of justification by faith. They affirmed, in other words, that their doctrine of merit, which allows human beings to redeem themselves through good works and through the sacraments. So they're saying you can do both, okay? And sacraments. They affirm the existence of purgatory and the usefulness of prayer and indulgences in shortening a person's stay in purgatory. So they still were stuck on this indulgences. Why? Why were they stuck on them? Because it brought in money. Okay. They reaffirmed the belief in transubstantiation and the importance of all 7 sacraments. Okay, so that's the body and blood thing, and also the other things like the other sacraments that you do in the Catholic Church. They reaffirmed the authority of Scripture and the teachings and traditions of the church. So again, this word "and" meaning both of them, the Scriptures and the teachings. Okay, and they reaffirmed the necessary correctness of religious art, which we will see below. Okay. So really probably come out as a net loss for Martin Luther, but they did kind of say a few things about, they did address a few things he brought up. Okay. The Council of Trent. So here's the part on religious art. The Council of Trent, the church also reaffirmed the usefulness of images, but indicated that church officials should be careful to promote the correct use of images and guard against possible idolatry. Okay. So that is basically the idea of people worshiping idols, okay, worshiping pictures, things like that. The council decreed that images are useful because the honor which is shown them is referred to prototypes of which those images represent. In other words, through the images, we honor the holy figures depicted. And they listed another reason images were useful, because the miracles which God has performed by means of the saints and their salvation examples are set before the eyes of the faithful, so they may give God thanks for those things, may order their own lives and manners in imitation of the saints, and may be excited to adore and love God and cultivate piety. So piety meaning like holiness, okay? So basically he was saying that, or the Council of Trent said, we can still have these artworks depicting these saints and depicting Jesus and everything, but let's try not to worship them. Okay, it's good to honor them, but we don't want to worship those things. Okay, the actual pictures. Well, as with a lot of reformations and revolutions, there was violence. So let's read about that. The Reformation was a very violent period in Europe. Even family members were often pitted against one another and wars of religion. Each side, both Catholic and Protestants, were often absolutely certain that they were in the right and that the other side was doing the devil's work. So, I mean, if you drop the word like you're doing the devil's work, that's no good, you know. Um, the artists this period, Michelangelo in Rome, Titan in Venice, Dürer in Nuremberg, and Kronisch in Saxony were impacted by these changes since the church had been the single largest patron for artists. Now art was being scrutinized in an entirely new way. The Catholic Church was looking to see if art communicated the stories of the Bible effectively and clearly. Protestants, on the other hand, for the most part, lost patronage of church and religious images, sculptures, paintings, stained glass windows, etc. They were destroyed in iconoclastic riots. So you got these two sides. You got the Catholics and you got the Protestants, and they're struggling. They're struggling to say which one is right. Okay, and as with most every struggle in the history of the world, there's probably a little bit of right on both sides of them, but they didn't see it that way. It was my way or the highway. So it was a big power struggle there. Okay. All right. And let's go to our final section here, some other developments. Okay. It is also during this time that the scientific revolution gained momentum and observation of the natural world would replace religious doctrine as source of our understanding of the universe and our place in it. So observation would replace religious doctrine. So things like, hey, maybe we're not the center of the universe. Okay. Um, things like how the world started. Okay, was kind of going more off of scientifically based than religious based. Copernicus upended the ancient Greek model of the heavens by suggesting that the sun was at the center of the solar system and the planets orbited around it. At the same time, exploration, colonization, and the often forced Christianization of what Europe called the New World continued. By the end of the century, the world of the Europeans was a lot bigger, and opinions about that would that world were more varied and more uncertain than they had ever been for centuries. Please note this tutorial focuses on Western Europe and other forms of Christianity in other parts of the world. For example, the Eastern Orthodox Church. Okay, so don't worry about that. It's just saying like, oh, we're talking about Christianity, Roman Catholic Church. All right, so that is your reading. So make sure you answer the questions. If you have any questions for me or Mr. Smith or Ms. Calabrese, please let us know. Drop us a Schoology message or an email. All right. Hope everyone is well.